Yep.
All right. So we are going to spend time developing your primary career. I'm calling it the career value message. This is that primary statement that says, here's why you want to meet with me. Here is the primary offer that I bring to you that is going to be worth my salary, because it's a value exchange. They are having a hiring problem, a business problem. They need someone to come in and serve the company in exchange for the salary, right? And it's a fair value exchange. If it's not, we won't accept the offer. So we're going to develop your primary value message. And then all of the secondary messages, what I'm calling is these prove it messages. And I have a little blurb up here. So when you do get this sheet, we're going to work through your messages. And then your homework is going to be, once we've identified clearly, here is your main message, and here are the things that support your primary career message. And I have my example below that we can use. So we're not going to go through this blind. Your homework will be then to consider some of the work you've done at Sikorsky, some of the challenges. You have a very specific target. Oops. And actually, let me go to my example just to make it crystal clear. My primary message, if you recall, I showed this last week, as a product manager in the payments industry. I help develop technology products. So my primary message, I kind of wrote out this blurb. Well, I drive cross-functional, complex, and infrastructure roadmaps connecting outcomes to technical decisions, all that blurb to improve the payments customer experience for my customers. When it comes down to it, that final message, I improve the payments experience for customers, is my primary value message. Everything that I do is for this overall goal. And we may have many goals, but this is the primary one. This is why somebody in the payments industry who needs someone from a product perspective, who's technical minded, this may be the reason why they're looking for, why they have that job rec out there, and why they may want to consider me. My main value message. Now, all of this other stuff is very much valuable because I do drive cross-functional efforts. I do help develop complex platform infrastructure. I know both sides of the house. But these kind of turn into how I improve the payments experience. So these are more my prove it messages. When it comes down to it, this is kind of a faceless statement. Anyone can say they improve the payments experience. Well, how can I prove in an interview that I do that? Well, because I have examples of how I've driven complex cross-functional initiatives. I prove it because, I partner well with technology to drive infrastructure, AWS, which is a big topic, and the AWS is a hot word in the tech industry right now, and all of these cloud migrations. So these turn into kind of my prove it messages. I make this overall statement, and here are the key skills that back up how I do this. Does that make sense?
Nope. Perfectly.
Yep, perfect. Okay, perfect. So that's what I have up here, because when you look at this in the future, I don't want you to get stumped. My example will always be there. So your primary career message is something that's not going to change often. We're going to develop here today. However, if you decide we're going to write this for finance analyst, but if you decide you want to go for, let's say, that cost analyst, the examples you use, the prove it messages may shift, or they're exactly the same because it's closely related, but maybe the stories, maybe you have another story that is a heavy hitter that is actually more impressive for that hiring manager and that specific job. So the stories may shift over time. But maybe the prove it messages remain the same. If you then consider something like pharmacy tech, now you're talking a very different role in a different industry altogether. So your primary career value message will likely look different, right? Because in one role, you're supporting finances in a company, and another one, your customer is very different. You're supporting patients, their health, right? So just some things to know to get started. Generally, this will not change until you're talking a very different role. Your prove it messages are how you prove your primary value messages. And that's where I brought my example. If I say I improve the payments customer experience, my prove it messages should be the relevant points that back it up. And your prove it messages, again, are always going to be tailored to that role. We're going to identify some here based on the finance analyst stuff we've been talking about. But again, if you may hit finance analyst in a different industry. And maybe when you look at the job requirements, the job description will tell you exactly what they're looking for. They will list out specific reporting models or finance modeling. So maybe you have one finance model explicitly called out for one role because they explicitly call it out. But then maybe for another one, they just say, finance modeling in general. And so maybe you want to update it to be more general and include examples across different type of models. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. But the key point is these messages, once you start to look at these messages against the role that you are preparing for an interview, you've already got the interview, you may recognize that, yeah, based on this job description, I know I need to talk about this instead. And that becomes one of your prove it messages. And the support stories, which will be your homework, really, once we've defined your prove it messages, these key skills that back up your primary message, there's some key points that you'll take a look at later. Your top 3 examples. And I have just we'll go over this at the end. I don't want to put too much on you right now. I want to dive into the fun part, the value messages. What I will say is for you specifically, I know that the pharmacy tech, this most recent role, kind of threw you for a spin. I will say, I have told you from the beginning, from my perspective, with your transferable skills and all these stories you told me about and what you accomplished at Sikorsky, you have the stories. Now, there may be some of these, we may identify some value messages that maybe you want to go do some, because it's been a while, go do some revamping on and kind of prep in case they do come up in interviews, because they likely will. But you have the experience that you have built to this point, and it is valuable. You accomplished good things. So when you get to the story part, this is going to really force you to identify those most relevant examples and think through some of the stuff that when we went through your resume process, the stuff that got me excited. That's really cool. So the compliance stuff you did, it wasn't the most glamorous, sexy part of the role, but you still did it. You reduced cost. You helped eliminate that backlog of whatever those were called. That's cool stuff, even though you may not think it. So when you go through some of these stories, kind of go back to that time and allow yourself to think of the stuff that you may not think was impressive. And then send me an email with all the dump. Here's some of these stories I've been thinking of. What do you think? And then I'm happy if you can just try to get it into one email for me just to help. It makes it easier to respond. But dump all the stories, like, all right, I have this example, this example, this example. Angel, what do you think? And I'm happy to help you narrow that down. Okay. Just keep in mind, you have so much of this that is transferable. And the key thing is it may not map in your mind. It's not going to map directly to finance, but with some of the analytical skills, they are transferable. So throw them in there because they may be transferable and you're just not seeing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I did want to talk to you about. In one of those meetings, I did have an interview recently with the Knights about that. I think it was the accounts payable job. And it was with someone in HR who I guess was on leave. And it seemed like it went very well. Just like, all right, I've had different cases. Some, we get an offer in a day, and others. And then I followed suit with what she said. She's like, oh, if you have any questions, bug me. I sent her a question, and like a couple hours later, they moved on. And the roles are actually still both up. So I guess that's telling that, they can't find what they're looking for, which frankly, I thought I had a shot at, but I don't know. I haven't had much luck with HR. It doesn't seem like what I say and what what I'm saying to them is
Yeah, and we will, so next week we're going to focus on oh my gosh, I have it because we have 2 more sessions. So one of them is going to be focused on common interview questions. And we're definitely going to talk about and script out how to talk about what happened in your last role, just so it's not a hindrance, because how you respond to these, your tone, any insecurity that's coming through your voice, could cause alarm. Uh-oh, what is he not telling us? Uh-oh, did this go really bad? So we want to practice that. And then we're going to talk about the likability factor and how to approach the interviews. So that way you are setting yourself up for success, helping them get their comfort level with you to establish that likability. And there are tricks of the trade we're going to go over. And then so hopefully it won't hopefully. It will turn the tide, at least from that perspective, and help you start getting more confident there. Okay, so let's focus on your primary career message. Actually, value message. Okay, so if we're thinking of a finance analyst role, and with some of the job postings that you have been looking at, with your background, why would a company benefit from hiring you? So the customers, and when I take a step back, like you tell me, so what does a financial analyst do? And what do they do for the company that they're serving?
They review. Hold on, I gotta pull it up.
And I can Google it. I did last night, but I don't remember the blurb. But yeah, if you think of the role, in order for a company to be successful, they hire finance analysts to help run the reports and to support the finance team. That way they can ensure they're on target, they're meeting objectives, blah, 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 right?
Yeah. A financial analyst evaluates financial data to guide investment decisions and improve a company's financial performance. Again, they're responsible for analyzing financial data, preparing reports, and providing insights to help organizations make informed financial decisions. They play a crucial role in assessing investment opportunities, forecasting financial trends, and advising management on financial strategies. Data analysis, financial reporting, investment recommendations, budgeting and forecasting, and collaboration. Oh, and market research.
Hey, Nick, real quick. Someone just rang my doorbell, which is why the dog started barking like crazy. Let me just go grab that real quick. And look at that, because when we get back, look at that definition and then consider that question. So 1 second, I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. I have 3 dogs here right now. So one of them is a barker, and man, mailman walks by or anyone walks near the house, she protects well. So sorry about that. Okay, so yes, and I did hear the majority of what you were reading off. So then reading what a finance analyst does to the role they play to help a company succeed in their finances. So a company, so why do you, like, based on your experience, where do you feel you would be a good fit for this role?
I'm very detail oriented. Numbers are concrete, they don't lie. Words are somewhat subjective and can have it's not all black and white. It can be gray, whereas at least for the most part, finances of a company, it's not usually behavior driven. Usually.
So when you're talking detail oriented, yes, that's definitely critical for the role. When you're saying, I'm just taking notes right now because we're going to start fleshing this out. So when you say the numbers don't lie, that is definitely a data analysis statement. In other words, you know how to pull the data to be able to pull insights from the data.
Mm-hmm.
So data analysis and insights is what you're describing to me. And I also know you have with your Tableau experience. So if the finance analyst, we already know looking at some of those job descriptions, they're going to run a lot of reporting. Now it's going to be finance reports that you may not specifically be as familiar, and maybe they covered some of it in your accounting degree and you have to go back and refresh your memory. Totally cool. You can do that before an interview. However, your technology knowledge, we've seen, even with that BI reporting that you're working on right now, that is valuable. That's a benefit.
Yeah, it's coming along slowly.
Right, but Tableau, your advanced Excel skills. So when we're talking about data analysis, I did see one of the job postings even mention being able to work with databases and pull the data, identify the characteristics to pull the data. So is that something that you have done in the past?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
One of the financial analyst jobs that you sent over to me mentioned being able to work with the databases, identify the characteristics to be able to generate the reports. Have you done that?
Yes.
How would you describe that then? So a company would benefit from this skill because it gets into the data analysis and it gets into the reporting piece. So help me tie that back to what you just read off as far as why you would be a successful finance analyst. I guess we'll put it that way.
Yeah. I'd be very good in that I had a lot of hands-on experience with running reports, both on a day, weekly, month-to-month, quarter, and annual basis. With regards to Tableau that I use daily, I would run it as it would give a snapshot in time at that precise moment where all the discrepancies or issues for various parts were in the discrepancy process. It would spit it out onto an Excel list, and then I would manipulate the data to be able to create a couple tables to highlight to management if they wanted to look at it at a bird's eye view, since they're very busy on a day-to-day anyway. They don't have time to do what I did, but to say, all right, we know this program is red, what are the things that could be contributing to this, and then select the needed manpower to go put out the fire, so to speak.
Okay, and I'm going to take a screenshot of this so we can have it side by side because I like having side by side comparisons. 1 second. And actually, why am I doing this when I have a mouse? That will make it so much easier. 1 second. Here we go. Perfect. So I have this here for example's sake. All right, let me get back to your example. Right, so Tableau is one way to massage the data, but in order to massage the data, you first have to be able to access the data. I think the point where I'm trying to hone in right now is you and I have seen that some of these finance analyst roles, they need somebody with the ability, yes, to massage the data, but first need to be able to access the data. So comfortable with databases. So tell me a little bit about that.
Right. Unfortunately, the access was requested and granted to me. Someone else created and maintained the dashboard of Tableau that highlighted or was able to produce other reports. I just had one piece of it. I
Okay,
did
so
kind of
maybe
want to get, sorry.
right. So maybe the database, I'm thinking joins, for example, but maybe that's not it. But being able to identify. So if they say they need a report with this, you can look across the different databases, though, identify the data you need to be able to help
Mhm.
create that,
Mhm.
to pull the
Sure.
data. Okay. So then how do we put that? Because I think that's the key thing. And maybe this is going to turn into, I'm blurbing it all down because I think it's kind of turning into the way my brain worked it out here to end up with, and then we'll nail down that final. So you and I know that the ability to identify the data points that matter. So
Mhm.
pretty much they can tell you, here's what we're looking to do. Now, in reality, though, being familiar with these different type of reports, like a budget report, whether it's yearly, monthly, you can easily, when you get into a job, look up their most recent reports to see the data points that matter. But once you get comfortable with the data that matters, or look up examples online, you can look at some of those data points, but you can identify the data points that matter because we know how to research it and look at their latest.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I
and
knew what to look for. I mean, in part, I was intuition, but I was also trained to
yep,
recognize this beginning.
and
But this
generate.
actually, and not to cut you off, this actually did come up in my last job at times, as I did have to run a report and kind of siphon what we were looking for. Like we needed just a particular set of characters in certain line items. And it's like, all right, if we found that, then we had to go make a trip to said unit. If not, we were good to go.
Perfect. So I think, between now detail oriented is one of those things which by the way, we're going to take a look at your one of the resume that you sent, because I see how you're updating the skill sections is wrong. And so I want to make sure we correct that so you can update your resume before you send it out again. Because we do not want to include something subjective like detail oriented. Everybody claims that. Or people, and I don't remember which ones you put in there, but like detail oriented, fast learner. That's boring
I think
stuff.
some of those words that were called out on the
I don't think
respective.
it was either. I don't remember which one it was, but I caught a couple of them, and then you were typing out statements instead of the keyword. So we'll go in and take a look at that just so I can correct that. That way it remains, because if you start adding statements and sentences in there, it's no longer an easy reference keyword section, or a skills section. It loses its power. So just a heads up, we'll spend a couple minutes and we'll pull that up just so I could show you.
Okay.
So detail oriented, yes, that's important. So I'm going to leave that here, but your data analysis and insights is a reason why somebody would hire you, because you do have experience with that. And we're talking, your time at Sikorsky was like, how many years again? I don't have your resume in front of me.
Over 5 years.
So you are mid-career level from a data analyst standpoint in a different industry, but that's why someone would want to hire you.
And also in pharmacy, as the first job, I did was data entry pharmacy tech. And actually, I did get clarification. He actually was looking to give me a higher level job after he found out I was trained to be a pharmacy tech. But anyway.
Well, but we're focusing on finance analyst though, so that may be a good call out if you were doing this for that. But for finance analyst though, I don't think that that's relevant. The data entry, but we can assume if you're doing data analysis and insights, then we already know you know how to do data entry, right? Like that's a skill not even mentioned; it's assumed, and they'll see data entry in one of your past roles, so obviously they'll know you're good at that. But we're talking about what will speak to this role. From a transferable skill perspective. Okay, what else? A company would benefit from hiring me as a entry-level finance analyst because, so one thing, another common theme I saw across those the mini job descriptions we've looked at, working with cross-functional teams. One of them I saw you would be reporting to a director. Other ones I saw you'd be collaborating with the finance team and internal they mentioned a bunch of cross-functional collaboration. So with your experience there, let's talk about that for a minute, because I think that may be a prove it message, but let's with what you read off about the general, what a finance analyst does to support the company's success?
Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, you were saying about working with different teams. Is that what you want me to
Yeah, so a finance analyst would have to be able to collaborate well and
Mm-hmm.
communicate with cross-functional teams. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that knowing your background, and that's a strength of yours, especially in Sikorsky and driving some of the stuff you did, to keep, with the external partners you worked with, all those vendors in the supply chain to help bring down that one list of risk items. I forget what that log was called.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned how you pushed to keep all the deliveries on schedule, and this was shipments overseas, which you cannot rely on predictability of that, but you pushed to get things where they needed to be, which means you were really good at persuading and communicating. So a company would benefit from hiring you into finance analyst because talk
Mm-hmm.
about your communication skills.
I'm
Because
I'm able to communicate with a wide variety of people, and I always I don't speak first. I let the other person talk first to kind of see what their tone is and where they are in the present motion of, like, emotionally, because that in part will determine how I frame my responses to them and really hone in on what's causing their emotion in the present moment. There was several times where this proved beneficial, and I think I can continue that in whatever my next uh, financial analyst role is.
right, but how does that help the company achieve their financial goals, right? So those are soft skills that definitely help. So if you're ever reaching out to another team from a finance analyst capacity, you're reaching out to them because you need something from them, or you're reaching out to them to provide them with some insight that they need, right? You're either giving them support or,
Yeah,
hey, I need some data, or we need to work this in.
well, that's kind of why I tailored my response to the latter of the two, that they were reaching out to me and not the other way around.
It could be either or. So,
Okay.
right. So think about, and because I've seen that across the job descriptions you sent out, the cross-functional is going to be getting data from somebody or providing something to someone, which means, and it seems like getting anything from anyone in a company is like pulling teeth. So there's a level of persuasion that comes into there. There's a matter of, like you were saying, listening first. I
Yeah.
honestly find that I get more cross-functional buy-in when I'm there to say, hey, what do you need? So then that way,
Right.
in you and me, when I turn around and say, I need something from you, you're more inclined to give it to me because I just helped
Sure.
you with
Well, no, right. And that's how most people are.
right. So
Yeah.
that cross-functional influence, that's kind of, we're leading them. That's why I always end up on thinking cross-functional leadership is the best way to say it, because in a sense, we're persuading them, we're leading them, even though we do not have the manager title, we are still kind of influencing them to do our job to provide the business the value that they need, if that makes sense.
I think so. Yeah, can you say
Okay.
that again?
By our ability to persuade and lead peers in other teams, we are
Mm-hmm.
in a sense leading, even though we don't have a manager title or we don't have that leadership title, but we are
Mm-hmm.
still leading through influence, which is why when I think of anything cross-functional, when we have the ability to say you have a skill as a cross-functional lead, we want to leverage that because, go back to our question, your
Mm-hmm.
primary value message is why a company would benefit from hiring me. Being able to lead cross-functionally is exactly one of the reasons why. That's actually a presidential message, but that's exactly why. Does that make sense?
You're gonna
So
have to say it one more time.
I'm sorry.
You're gonna have to say that last part again once more, please.
So with the examples that you have mentioned, and think through Sikorsky, think of all the other times that you've had to reach out and coordinate and help drive or help support or help bring something to completion, whether it's a project, a report, whatever. when you've had to work with other teams cross-functionally, are we at least in agreement that yes, you see some of the work you did and you recognize that you have led cross-functionally? You have helped
Correct.
guide things and influence them to completion, to delivering what you needed to. Okay, perfect. So then you're not going to, I want to make sure you're confident with what I'm about to state. So if we're looking at why a company would benefit from hiring you in a finance analyst entry-level role, then one of these statements is because you have experience as a cross-functional leader to drive results.
Correct.
You see how powerful that statement is?
Without a doubt. You're hired.
And actually, I think we're in the process of developing all of your prove it messages, to be honest. But again, my example, that's how I had to narrow it down. So let's now spin it to, this is everything I learned with that interview coaching certification course. I loved it. It was very strategic. And, so this is how I had to learn it. So when you are, because we looked at how a finance analyst contributes to a company's overall success. When you are providing your expertise in data analysis and being able to help with those insights, ability to identify the data points that matter and generate those reports because you have advanced skills in some of these technical tools, and you have experience being a cross-functional leader to drive results. You're doing all this resulting in what?
I'm sorry, in what I did previously or what I'm trying to convey and that I can do?
But you do all this, and if you're a finance analyst, or even in your career, you offer these skills to result in what for the company? So let's use any of the companies that you've applied to recently as your example if you want to.
You're trying to drive value in see where the bottlenecks are, what's driving things a certain way, whether good or bad. Is the company going up? Is it stagnant? Is it kind of going down? Why is that? Why are we
real quick.
In the current state it's in?
Okay, yeah, you just mentioned something. So driving value. Oh my goodness, I just had it and I just lost it. You mentioned some of that driving value. It's almost like driving value for business decision.
Yeah, you could say that.
Driving insights, because you're saying, is the company going up? Is the company going down? That's insights for business decision.
Yeah, I mean, it could be going a little up and down.
But what you're describing they run these reports to be able, so leaders can look at them and say, okay, how did we do in Q2 compared to Q1? Where are we at for our business goals that were set for the year? Where are our expenses at versus the revenue we're bringing at? What's getting out of control? Where do we have risk, right?
You can see exactly, why I chose this as a major in a career. Or hopefully, I'm hoping this will pan out well.
Actually, so driving insights for business decision. I really like that. Driving insights for business decision resulting in what? This is where we keep drilling that down. We keep asking that question until it doesn't make sense to go any further. So when we drive insights for business decision, resulting in what?
Resulting in potentially change, or keeping things as they are. And I guess how I'm looking at it is, all right, the company is doing at this level, which is okay. We wanted to do better, and we have a couple projects that we could take up that hopefully it'll bring it up, but it also could go. It could make the company sag as, you know what I mean? and I mean, there's a multitude of answers that this could be demonstrated in, but I'm going with the projects as, all right, we have 3 projects. Project A is developmental. It's has a probability of doing very good, and that we spend X number of dollars to invest in it and get it going. But it also comes at risk in that it could sag the business and make it harder. We'd still be afloat. We wouldn't be dragged down to the bottom, but developmental. Then we have Project B, which is tried and true. Has us, it's consistent. It has us, it's reliable. It's I don't know. It's like the Dunkin' Donuts of like consistent. You know what to kind of expect. And then you have Project C, where it just sucks.
Yeah.
It's not a good investment, but there might be some pieces we can pull off of it and add value to something else. So we're keeping it in mind, but we might just scrap it. So
Right. But even then, what you're describing, at least to me, sound like, we're saying drive insights for business decision. Well, business decision for what, right? Business decision are always to drive growth in one way or another, whether they're focusing on market share, whether they're focusing on revenue, whatever, both, whatever the case may be. So I'm wondering if your main statement then is, I provide, because we're honing in on your data analyst background and your ability to generate and run these reports, and the fact that you have cross-functional experience. There may be, obviously, we're going to have more of these prove it messages. So actually, let me do this here.
Yeah. Well, the data doesn't lie, as
analysts, data analysis and insights. So that's one of your prove it messages. Actually, data analysis. Identifying data points and generating views with advanced tools is another one, and cross-functional to drive results. And I'm going to say another one here. You want to play this card. As much as compliance and audit was not your favorite part of Sikorsky, the fact is that is such a selling point no matter where you go. Because finance analysts, when you're in the financial realm, you and I both know that is a key part of business in the United States, right? There are two
revenues. Revenues are good, costs are bad.
Yep, risk management, and I will say maybe even compliance, and maybe another one, because that's just key. So I'd say we've already kind of identified 5. Here are some of the main things that really matter to be able to say, I drive insights for business decision, or I provide insights that support customer growth. I think this is kind of landing in on that final statement, but I'm kind of, let me stop, because my brain tends to move quickly. I think you and I are similar in that area. How is this looking so far to you? And does this make sense? Like, I think this may be your statement.
It makes sense. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I in part thought of like Sikorsky and how, they had these projects that they invested in heavily in for years, and then it didn't pan out. But that's part of business, that businesses have these kinds of decisions and things come up all the time, and project is just one thing. I mean, you can look at like employees, like how many people we have, what is their job function, how much are they earning, what are the benefits, what is our expense on all this, what about the buildings we have, and what it costs to maintain them, taxes, all this stuff. So, I mean, there's different facets. So, I mean,
And business growth is sometimes reducing expenses. Sometimes it's cost optimization.
yeah, well, right.
Sometimes that's how we grow the business, right?
Well, right. So, I mean, I use the project as one example, but I mean, there's a multitude of facets that we could go. But yeah, I mean, the overall function of the finance team is to, drive growth for the business and for its shareholders if it's a public company. So,
Yeah, I'm just looking at my notes real quick. Increase sales.
mhm,
Okay. Because we have some, here we go. So I
mhm.
just updated. Really, we have the statements, but this turns into your message. I partner with, so there has to be the action verb. So I'm identify. I identify data points and generate views using
Well,
advanced.
just say, okay, if a manager was questioning on, okay, do we want to keep this building up and running when we don't really need to save expenses? Well, we look at all the avenues. I'm like, all right, what does it truly cost to maintain the building? Are employees actually going in there and doing work? Or is it, for just meetings, or, do other things happen in the building? Like, do we make product, or do we support some other business in some other capacity? A multitude of, all right, what's driving the expenses of, and it does seem like I'm kind of going a little all over, but
No, it's okay. It's okay. We're brainstorming here, and I think I'm just looking at my notes real quick and just making sure. I did see that for all of these, many of them, and I'm looking at my notes. I mean, a qualification, is also, they're calling out required bachelor's degree in each of these fields, and you actually have a bachelor's degree in accounting, correct?
finance.
Finance. Oops, sorry. Thank you for that correction. Finance, which
Well,
is right up the alley of what they're, so
yeah.
we want to call that out as a qualifier.
Hmm.
Um, Tell me about some of the coaching work that you've done. You mentioned with Sikorsky how you would help kind of coach newer team members. Tell me a
Yep.
little bit about that. I'm just saying from a soft skill perspective, if that's something
Um,
you want to
well,
live.
right. I mean, I could also talk about like the Dale Carnegie course I took, where that was also about like learning how to communicate and like human relations. I don't know if you're familiar with Dale Carnegie, but it's,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
they have some very good programs. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go on site for the class; it was remote. But no, it highlighted on like the the basics of human like communication and like interaction, and how you got to kind of, again, to what you were saying earlier, motivate and kind of persuade people, and that most people are frankly selfish, and they won't do things out of the goodness and kindness of their heart. You got to kind of what's in it for them, so to speak, to kind of get your message or your point or what you want done. I guess to talk a little bit about Sikorsky, and maybe even my data entry tech role, that I knew a lot, and actually I started training people at the end, where certain regulations really prevented us techs from handling medications outside of a controlled camera environment. And it actually, as it turns out, that some techs did have the power to do that at home. And I was like, well, we really shouldn't be doing that. And I had other like all these like little tidbits that I kind of just added value, where I was getting some kind of criticism, like, oh, you're taking a class and you can't seem to do this job. And I'm like, well, I don't know, respectfully why that is, but this is what I can do instead. Um, they kind of did seem a little like kind of put in their place, so to speak.
Maybe it sounds like possibly stepping on some toes. I've dealt with that over the years where you kind of volunteer or step into something because you recognize it's an opportunity or a gap, or, and then, well, they feel like that was something they should have done. And so, you get criticism instead of, hey, great initiative or something like that.
Yeah, I think they felt a little threatened by me.
Yeah.
I felt that way
so many times.
So
that's kind of a byproduct of being a overachiever, but don't stop being that. We learn to be more tactical. Now I know who those I try to identify those individuals and try to partner with them. Or if I sense that someone's feeling toes were stepped on, I'll reach out to them. Hey, just wanted to get and even though I already know what I'm doing, but I'll try.
No, I did. And even that, they were kind of a little rude.
Yeah.
And they were a little rude afterwards, like, oh no, you were. And it's like, and I even asked for feedback from someone else. I'm like, you were kind of with me too. Did you notice? I was like, no, it's just them and their personality. So I don't know. I find that I'm a little childish, frankly.
No, I completely agree. It's there's always those hard individuals to work with. They become my project to try to put them. First of all, I don't have to deal with drama while we're trying to get our work done together. Because in the end, we collaborate.
Well, right. Not to, I guess to coach, let's go to the ops analyst role. So I think that would be beneficial for one of our stories. So, I had my work was ending and they needed to find someone to still, do the work on a less frequent basis, that it would still need to be done, but just, it wasn't enough that they needed someone full time to do it. And I was training an intern. They seemed maybe a little bit not really ready for a job like this, but there was times where they'd be forgetting things, and I don't know whether that was on purpose or truthful, but I just would be very patient, and I would just explain to them the process of how I did my work, in part by training, by doing, and getting feedback from others. The end result was successful training session, if you will, and they continued, or I passed the torch and they did the work. So
perfect. So that story, which job were you in for that, or what example?
The ops analyst role.
Which one?
The ops analyst.
And who was this with?
That was with Sikorsky. I was a contractor.
No, I mean, which individual you were coaching in this instance?
Oh, this was an intern.
Okay, I'm going to put ops analyst intern as one of the stories. Perfect. Okay, so let's come back real quick. Want to make sure we capture that because that's a good one. And process improvement. I did want to ask about this because I did see in the different job titles that automation and process improvement was mentioned in multiple.
Yeah.
So I know you've mentioned process improvement. Have you done any automation?
There was talks of implementing automation. So I guess from a human perspective, it used to be that actually a whole group would be the one entering in data regularly and creating approvals in the GTS system, and to automate it and get everyone more versed in it. Everyone had some exposure to it, and me and a couple others were deemed like subject matter experts or super users. And what is it? This automation was like again a human version of not a system automatically just doing all the work, still a person, but more people are, you know, versed in it. So the skill set is expanded. So it's not just a select few that know and how to do it. It's everyone is able to, you know, do this.
Right, but you mentioned how it was planned, but did it ever happen?
No,
So
it did. I mean,
oh, it did. Okay.
and again, from automation from in the traditional sense.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it looks like, because I'm not as I was trying to picture because I'm on the tech side, when I picture automation, oh boy, I can get into weeds there. But from
Yeah.
a finance perspective, I was trying to picture a simple example of what automation looks like.
Well, I
Maybe it's
guess,
like a report generating automatically, like
yeah, like an AI system or a computer just doing the calculations or running the reports. Whereas and actually, I was a little concerned about it because they were like, oh, AI is going to take over like certain people's jobs, so people aren't going to be able to work. Um,
yeah,
so,
but AI can't do everything. The
no,
reality
you still
is,
need to,
they still need people to manage AI because AI still adds way too much extra stuff that's not relevant. You know, they can automate certain things, but the automation is only as good as the person creating the automation, creating the rules that it works behind. So, okay, so when we say process improvement, so and automation, so that's really, we're saying automation from automating report generation, automating reports. You have done.
um, yeah, you could say that, or just doing the work that normally a person would be doing. Um, I would say process improvement where it was emphasized, you know, when I first started that ITC associate role back
Mhm.
in 2019. They were like, well, you know, it's going to probably take you a couple of years to really learn all the ins and outs of this job. Where I kind of took that with a bit of a grain of salt, and they were right to an extent. You know, there was a lot of nuances, or like, all right, you know, this was the goal. You know, could you really meet that goal with all the parameter and all the stuff you have, or do you really need to, you know and learn more to really hone in on what was needed? That was kind of the process. It's like, oh, always getting a little better, being more like congruent and, you know, exact in every single function. Like, all right, you know, don't take their, you know, dawdling as, you know, oh, something else came up, you know, your work wasn't important. No, you gotta like be on them like a hawk. So, like, you know what I mean? Kind of.
Kind of.
Okay.
Right. But when we say process improvement, so let me take a step back for a moment, if I may. And then I think we have enough for you to actually kind of go through and think about this and make sure that these are, when you look, because the next thing is, hey, based on what we've identified here, if you're going into an interview, are these the key things that, based on what you're seeing across these finance analyst job descriptions, is there anything else that is very common across them that we haven't touched here? And that, I think, is going to be my question for you. But when I take a step back, when I think of process improvement, I think of stuff that is making my job harder, stuff that is not efficient, that is such a pain for us to do this every month or do this every week or every quarter. And oh my gosh, it needs automated. We shouldn't have to do this, those things. Or something that my team keeps coming, or someone on my team keeps stating again and again, I'm blocked. This isn't working. This is erroring.
Yeah. Well,
Or this
that
is taking too long. So I think of those are always the best candidates from a process improvement. So when I
yeah.
think of improved processes, that's what I kind of think they're meaning.
Well, right, and that's what I was alluding to earlier with, you know, they found that just a small group within the department doing all of this, you know, clearing and like data entry within the global trade service system
And
wasn't
then
really,
how did you improve that? Or how did you propose to?
I mean, I probably should have made the recommendation. I kind of waited for them to say, all right, we're gonna make you. Well, they
So
kind of
what did
hinted
you
at
do?
it.
What did you do to solve that, to improve that
Oh,
process?
I took on the training to be able to do it myself. So, at first I was kind of crawling, and then I was walking, and then I was running. I was doing the whole shebang, if you will.
So you improve, but the process, okay, hold on. You taking it over may have made their life easier, but did it improve? How did you improve the steps of what needed to be done? Because
I
when you the
uh,
company, somebody would have had to take that over. Was the process, the steps involved, better than what it started as?
uh,
Not it shifting to somebody else. Sure, that helped them, but did the process of what to do, how did that get better?
it just kind of had I mean, I think it moved things along that were kind of just sitting and aging. Like they, again, had items that needed to be cleared. There was some issue with it. It just was kind of sitting there collecting dust. And
And
I
what was
just,
the risk to the company if it stayed collecting dust?
it wouldn't move forward, and it kind of just prevented program deliverables from being effectively delivered.
That's the key right there. So I think what you actually just gave me a story of is risk management. So what was that process called one more time? Took over
Took over clearing in GTS, Global Trade Services.
clearing and GTS data entry
Correct. Yep. And
to mitigate program.
well, to mitigate compliance risk, but also to, um, you know, hasten or, I guess, light up aging items that have just been sitting for a while and not, no one's really attending to them. I mean, they might be not as urgent as need be, but they kind of just, in a pile.
And I'm actually putting this under your compliance statement. So and I'm going to put a thought here. What risk did this avoid? So in other words, think of what that worst case scenario was when you think about this as a good story to tell, because that's your success. I took this over because I knew if this didn't get resolved, this is what it would mean for the company. We'd be fined. We'd have issues. We'd be in trouble
Yeah,
with the
we would
government.
not find, we wouldn't be able to send them out the door, uh, as it'd be caught in an audit. Then it's like, oh, you send this up, and you didn't
Perfect.
have.
Okay. Yeah. I'll include those notes here because I think we're running out of time here, but okay. So what I'm going to do, is get these finished as in the I did something, because that's what we want these messages to be. So I'm going to finish kind of getting the thought, turning it from just this statement of compliance to I something, right? I coach
Mhm.
and train team members. That's a good statement. So you want to do like I and then some action verbs. So I'll finish getting it into the statement form and get this out to you. And I'll include in the email when I send it. So your homework this next week will be to think through your history, and based on this statement, I improve processes and automated reports. What are the top 3 examples, whether it's a process improvement or an automated report, your most impressive example or your most impactful? And when you think of a process improvement, it's
Mhm.
this was improved to help this. You know what I mean? So think of those examples. That's where, as you're thinking through these stories, feel free to dump them. All right, Angel, prove it message 2. Here's a few stories. Which one, if you want some guidance on that or a second opinion, feel
Yeah.
free to send an email. Just try to put it in one, just so it's a lot easier to respond to one versus multiple.
Can you put these questions out in an email, and just so I probably should.
I'm going to send you an email with this attachment, and okay, here's your homework, and I'll list it out for you.
Okay.
So I will
And
get into those statements, come up with your top 3 most impressive stories. And this is where your top 3 examples. These are the stories you will be able to easily, because we're going through this process, we're prepping now. These are the stories that you'll have fresh in your mind, and you will easily be able to speak to in an interview because you've already gone through the work of identifying the most compelling examples from your experience. You know what I mean? And then choosing the top 3. We're not looking for the top 5. We're not looking for the top 4. This should force you to identify the most relevant for the, so think of right now we're focusing on think of the last 3 finance analyst roles you sent to me. If you need them, I can send that email back to you so you have the actual ones, but let's use those as an example. You want the most relevant for those jobs.
I mean, is it a huge issue if, I did look up, and as I think I told you, I do have a couple entry-level finance jobs.
Sure, go on those. Yep. But
Okay.
try not to compare it against, just stick to 2 to 3.
Okay. And I mean,
then you're looking at literally what this requires this, you're able to see the common threads across them.
Well, right. And I mean, do these stories have to be work related, or could they be, as I mentioned in that class, I mean, that pharmacy tech class also had some notable things, even like the onboarding. And I kind of scratched my head a little. And even in, I think I mentioned I'm a member of the Lions Club. I've worked in that.
If it is going to, these are stories that directly support your data analysis. These are stories that directly support you successfully identifying data points and generating views that supported the business. These are points that directly speak to partnering with cross-functional teams and what results did you help drive? Did you help, help keep a project stay on track? Did you help, successfully work with an external partner to help close out audit findings? Mm-hmm. So keep in mind, these are stories specifically to these prove it messages.
Okay.
So these are the statements that say, let's take a step back. I drive insights. I provide insights that drive business decision, or I provide insights that support business growth. These are how you do it. And then these are the stories that when they say, interesting, so you're really good at identifying data points and generating views. Tell me about that. You're not going to get stuck. You actually already have a couple stories fresh in your mind that that's a great question. I would love to tell you about that. And you can just start talking through it,
Well, right. In each of these stories, I mean, I'm going to give you the details. There's going to be a lot more detail that I give you than what actually is able to be, spoken of.
Yep. So when you do them, we're going to present them in the CAR format. This is what we also use when we're working on accomplishment statements for resumes. So, and let's say with an example, automating report generating. The challenge was every week, and I'm just making something up. Every week, it took 5 hours to manually pull the data and create this report for leadership. I automated it, which was the actions I took using this tool, and the result was improved efficiency and time saved, and taking 5 hours down to 30 minutes a week. I'm making it up, but so the challenge action results is a very simple way to, put it in a story format for the interview.
Okay.
And actually in other places.
I mean, can I ballpark the value roughly that it took? I mean, I don't know, frankly, some of these.
I mean, but if it's in that example, and again, I made that up. If you do have an example where you automated report generation, then you likely know, then ballpark it. Like I don't remember exactly if it was 1 hour, 10 minutes, but I know it took roughly about this much time. And then I know it saved roughly this much time. Yeah, they're never going to go back and verify that. As long as we're just, roughly is totally fine, as long as we're not just making something up.
Yeah. Okay.
So write out your stories in CAR format.
When is this due?
I mean, and keep in mind, This is to help you simplify it because, again, you and I are both analytical. So this is so you don't have to write a book. Here was the challenge. Reporting took 5 hours. It was a pain. Actions I took, the result, what the outcome was. So this is going to help simplify that just so you don't, go down a rabbit hole with some of these with the details.
Okay.
Have the stories identified. You're going to want to write, at least have the basic challenge, action, result noted. Whether or not you have blown all of them up, don't worry about that. But the key thing, so for next week, and actually I'll put it here.
Yeah.
For homework. Because this is now, we have talked through, now you have this tool you can leverage. Identify your top 2 to 3 stories for each prove it message that backs up why you want to hire me,
And how many prove it messages are there?
We identified 8. So, and actually for this one, I included this one because I saw it as a great example, and I know it was called out specifically.
I'm sorry, 1, because your mouse isn't moving. Cursor's.
I'm at prove it message 7, so I have a bachelor's degree in finance.
Okay.
So I have this one written, but the stories, it's not necessarily stories, but in this instance, what are a couple ways, like why is this valuable for finance analyst roles? And what I'm thinking here is like, if education ever comes up, yes, and I actually do have a degree, a bachelor's degree in finance, and and where my favorite classes were, and I'm just thinking of something with finesse to mention and kind of throw it in there. But why is my favorite classes were, and then something that is going to really, like my favorite classes were, and I'm trying to think of a really good example because I don't know the curriculum of a degree in finance, but
Securities analysis.
One more time.
Securities analysis.
Oops, perfect. And this is just strategy. I would want to sit there and throw something out there that I know would catch their ear and like, ooh, okay, okay, fine. He has a degree, but this is what he really enjoyed about it. So maybe that's something he's good at. Securities analysis, data modeling, that the modeling has come up in almost every one of those job postings. So when I think of the education one, those are kind of what I'm thinking through. And we got a head start for you. As you can, in this call today. So we spent a little more time, but having that head start, I know is a good thing. So, all right. So I will get this sent to you then that way. So for next week, just have the 3 top stories identified. And you can just send it to me. You can write them out if you want to write. I wouldn't write them out in this table. It's going to make it very convoluted. Feel free to maybe write them out here if you'd like to.
I'm sorry, what do you mean out here? Because at least, your screen is still stuck at, prove it.
Oh, no.
Right. Well, that's kind of why I was having a hard time.
Yeah, let me stop and share again, and then we'll shift to the next piece because I'm going to open up your analysis because I do have a hard stop.
Well, I guess so. Are we not going to be able to do the skill gap today?
Oh, no, we're going to shift to that next. So I'm going to show you what we have here because I'm going to send both of these to you. But I want you to understand from a skill gap perspective, the view that I'm trying to, because I've gone through those 3 job postings you sent, on a couple different times to build this out. And I've built this out for another girl that I mentored, and she was a career changer. She was able to clearly see what her gaps were. And, she managed to get out of a role that she was in for 12 years and shift into a totally different area, which she was super excited about. And it was something she was very passionate about. So, this is part of the data analysis for our project of transitioning into something new. We want to know what all of the risks, in other words, where do I not align with my experience to date, which is okay. And then are they small? Are some of them big? And then come up with a plan on which ones you need to, that way you're spending your time from, like right now, Power BI, we saw on some of the job postings, that's helpful. But whatever the next one is, you'll want to come up with a game plan. So that way you're spending time on what's going to add the most value. Okay, so I will send this to you. Let me switch real quick and so we can wrap this up. And I'm looking for Excel. I think this was it. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
All right. So Nick inventory. So I just recreated this view, although I have a totally different view I've used in the past with folks, but
I just got allergies.
That's okay. So what I've created is I need to get that other, I was working on this one again last night. So I have 4 sections. Hard skill. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I'm just, again, I got it.
Oh, okay. I'll wait for a second. Let me know when you're back.
Yeah, there you go.
You back?
Yep.
Okay. So it is a very simple, this is actually what I used every time I did a career change. I had a very rough, more first time view, but I literally went through an inventory of my own skills for that particular industry. I separated it by hard skills, soft skills, job requirements they called out explicitly, and then optional requirements, those nice to haves. And I went through, and these are coming directly from the different job titles or what I know is an industry standard. So as you're researching finance analyst, because this is your goal to break into it, you can add things under the right section, which you and I both know Excel, just control right, insert row. But I added in 3 of the jobs. I was working on it, but didn't paste it here. So this is the one from New Haven, wherever that name is, and then another one.
Yeah, you're going to put that third one in later, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, before I send it to you. But what you're looking to do, and this should have. All right. So what you're looking to do is continue. I'll do one more go through these to make sure that I have everything called out. Just so you know, like budget process knowledge came up because I first started this doing like pasting the, I was hoping I could, kind of do it quickly and paste it into ChatGPT and say, give me a list of all the hard skills, soft skills required. But it gave me these overall high statements. That was a bunch of crap. So budget process knowledge, well, duh. Actually, what they mentioned explicitly in the job posting is annual budget and planning. So we don't want to do high level. We want to be very specific with what's coming up in these job postings and then put it X. Okay, this job, which I'm going to put in here, mentioned all of these things. And this one, they didn't just mention process improvement. They want demonstrated ability, means you better be ready with stories when you go for that interview, right? Generative AI came up in this one. So do you have any stories on visualization tools that you used?
Yep.
So I'll go through this one more time and just see if I have gleaned everything from these 3 job postings for hard skills and soft skills that I have. Then I would like you, and I'll put this in the email, but I'm going to type it here just so you see what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
First, go through, because you know finance analyst. You've done more research on this career than I ever will have, because that's, so go through, add any other hard, soft skills relevant to this role.
I guess, and are these all from just the job descriptions? Or are these also from the job descriptions and like ChatGPT?
No. These are, I tried to do ChatGPT. It was not great. So then I came in here and started to do it all myself. So you see, I added SOX compliance. I'm sure there's more, but I did not add it all in here yet. So first step is to come through here Is there anything else that you know comes up for compliance, for regulatory, and actually audit should be in here?
I guess this is a rhetorical question, right?
What?
Or are you asking in the present moment?
No, this is going to be when you take a look at this, because I'm building the tool that then you're going to take it and run with it. So I am adding everything that I know to add just based on this, but it's only based on these 3 job postings. I will make sure that that's done when you get this, but you know the industry, what else is missing that you know is required to be able to apply for these roles and have any chance of getting in there, you know? So come through, add any other hard skills and soft skills for finance analyst as a whole. And then go through, and then once you've added, and like another example, I have soft skills in here, and I did try to leverage ChatGPT. I'm going to add some of this because cross-functional leadership is important. Like this is where ChatGPT kind of sucks. Organizational skills, well, duh. Some of this is really silly. Verbal communication is have you presented in front of people. Written communication is better put as email communication, presentation, doing presentations. So I'll blow this up. Let me highlight this as yellow because this is kind of cheap. This is where I didn't.
It's high level.
Huh?
It's a general overview.
It's not to them. Yeah. So once you're done blowing this up, I will have this blown up when I send it to you. So go through, add even more soft skills that I could be missing, but then go through and check off which of them fit your background. So you're going to come through and X. Okay. And then once you do that, you're going to go through. So go through, add X's in your column down all the skills, which apply to you. Got it?
Sure.
And then very simply, once you've created this view, you can even add another role in here if you want to, another job title. But once you've created this view, it is very simple. Let's say you have all these. I'm going to look at this horizontally. If there is a job, let's say this tool that came from one of the job postings, if there's an X and you are here and you do not have an X here, that's a gap potentially. If it only came from one of the roles, and maybe it's not industry wide, and maybe it's not going to be a big gap. Maybe it was just unique for that particular job. But that's why we look at a couple of these. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So you want to look across horizontally. Anything where you have an X and there's an X here, you're good. If there's something, anything that there's an X even in one of these, and you do have a blank here, though, potential skill gap.
Mm-hmm.
So update F with to identify potential skill gaps. Is there anything you want me to put to clarify in case you look at this later? You're comparing these against what you put.
Right.
So B.
Oh wait. What I put for my resume or just in the present moment? Like, essentially, I'm looking at each of these skills. I know how to do it. I can do it for this job, is what you're saying.
When you update column B, do you have experience with the skill or not? Yes or no? And this could be from college. So if you recall a certain accounting report that you generated, if you can recall the exact one, not just say reporting in general, the exact one, that's experience, Now you may want to say in college, so you kind of remember this is what you're referring to, but finance reporting, we're talking like a reconciliation report. Then yes, you have very beginner level experience, but at least you could say you've done that and you can practice on some of it before the interview, right?
Yeah, you can make the argument. Yeah, I do have but okay.
But you can add little notes to refresh your memory, but you're going to go through, update your own skill inventory against what we know matters for this role, because you've gone through and added, and then you're going to evaluate horizontally. C, D, and E versus what you put in B. If it's blank, if B is blank, this is a potential gap. Does that help?
Yep.
So yeah, so once you've built out this view though, this is kind of tedious to build out, which is why I wanted to start building it out for you, but I know it's powerful. So once you build this out and you're able to update F, send it back and let's take a look at what your gaps are.
Okay.
Because then what we're going to do is on a next tab, I'm going to pull in all of your gaps and we're going to just start to prioritize them. Which one's big, which one's, based on effort and then based on importance. And then we'll take it from there.
Okay. Oh, wait, sorry. Say that last part again. Sorry.
Once you're done.
Yep.
Once fully done,
Yeah.
then back the SLS. I'll keep it very simple. Just send it back to me because I know the next step we're going to take and I'll update it so that way you don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
So I will send this to you tonight with the with your primary message chart. This should actually be somewhat simple. So I would just, I know you're going to probably spend more time on the interview prep. So I would request maybe take a look at this first, and then that way you can just get that back to me because I don't want this to be the looming thing. This may actually help influence the strategy you're taking with your next educational opportunity.
Okay.
And then this interview, you could easily adjust this for pharmacy if you'd like, but this is going to be where once you get those stories, these are going to be where you want to start kind of preparing those stories. But at least now you're spending time preparing the stories that are going to really matter,
Yeah. Okay.
And definitely as you're looking up other finance analyst roles, if you notice another one is very like data analysis. If you notice something, data analysis is going to be common across the board. So let's say you notice something else is absolutely mission critical that they're mentioning. Maybe there's one of these that you want to replace. That's okay. Because again, you're tailoring it to that role. That's what we're trying to do.
Okay. Very good.
All right. So I will stop sharing. This recording will be available at some point tomorrow because it takes forever to download. But I hope that this was insightful and helpful, just from a preparing for interviews and with some of the interviews you've already had, maybe some of the stories or some of the examples you may have used that maybe you can now recognize maybe weren't the biggest heavy hitters. And maybe there's many reasons why things don't move forward, but at least now we can start to eliminate this being one of the reasons,
Okay. Well, and I mean, I did actually have a question to what you were saying about that, job, that pharmacy tech job. I know you said the 48-hour mark. Is that regardless of whether it's a job I applied for or inquiring about a job, etc.? Just, I applied last night.
Yeah, you can report every day.
Oh, you can.
Appreciate the follow-up. If it's something you haven't applied to yet, then I don't think you're reaching out within 48 hours. That's just a blind, that's just an first.
Then I'll reach out to them after this call.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
say, hey, I applied. I think I spoke to someone last week and was just seeing if there was further interest.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay.
All right.
The jobs. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're doing all the right things. This is, it takes a little bit to get it going, but if you have any other easy questions, definitely feel free to continue the emails. It's just when it's big questions that it's a little more difficult.
Right. I mean, well, I guess what's your take on that with that conversation with HR where they kind of just kind of like steered me in the right direction and then they kind of just, or is it more than you're just not privy to?
We are not going to know why they chose to move on. It could be something in how, and this is where we'll talk about likability next week, because that's the next thing. I have an example, and this is just one example from a peer, because I sit with my peers every month and just hear what.
Wait, what?
Sorry, mailman. This is where I sit with my peers every month, and they mentioned, oh boy. Okay, I think I got them to stop. Jeez, they're good at protecting the house, but my goodness, they're loud about it. So, and here's an example. So I had a peer who was working, she was having a client that was struggling. She was going for all these interviews, and she was senior level, had all the experience, seemed to interview well, and she could not figure out why she was making it to the final round of interviews and nothing was sticking, no offers. And so my peer asked her, hey, see if your next interview, your interviewer is comfortable with you recording it. And oh my gosh. And when she, here, I'm leaving you. This is ridiculous. This way we can finish this. But so my peer got the recording though, and it turned out, and this is part of a likability thing, it turned out she spent the entire time in the interview not looking at the camera, but looking at her second screen and was typing really loud the whole time because she's a note taker. So she wasn't making eye contact and all this noise, but type. And it was distracting. And so most likely it was a likability thing where you're not connecting through a interview. Even if it's virtual, you still need to make eye contact and connect, which we'll talk about next week. And the distraction of the loud typing was not helping her interviewer to connect with her and really kind of get drawn into seeing her in that role, to having engaging conversation. It was just too much of a mental distraction. So there could be other, and I say that story to say, it's not just about your credentials. It's how we present it. And it's little things that we don't realize can be turnoffs. It's like if you meet a girl, you have that first impression, and even if she's got all the right check boxes, right? Because something weird, that was just a turnoff in the beginning, you're not going to look at her again. Someone else is going to catch your eye. Mm-hmm. So we can look at the interview process is kind of like dating. So we want to make sure we're kind of setting ourselves up that way as well. Mm-hmm. Which I actually heard someone mention that, and I really like that analogy.
Yeah. So,
so we'll talk about that more next week. And sorry about the dogs and all their barking. My goodness.
That's fine.
All right. Have a good week, Nick.
I'll try. You too.
Well, hold on. What are your goals for the week? What are your top 3 things?
Really try to hammer out the Power BI class. It's kind of been put on the back burner. I haven't really gotten as much as I should have done. Okay. I kind of just want to get it out. And then just apply for a couple jobs. And I got to follow up with those employers. So Power BI, apply for jobs, follow up on the jobs I've applied to, and see if we can start getting those moving to the right, hopefully.
Okay. And then from last week, the efforts you dove right in. I know you did. And I know that's a lot of work. So what would you say was one of your successes from last wefor Because while we're going through this process, we got to celebrate the wins. So what was one?
I applied for jobs with, your resume, but I also, bridged it from my old resume. And I also used Power BI to really siphon out, what the hard, soft, all the little skills that maybe I overlooked that I was able to, put into that, that skills section where you just type it in, you hit enter, and it gives you a bunch of options. This is in the actual online application.
Got it.
So,
okay.
Similar to what you were saying about, putting those skills in for each of your LinkedIn jobs, which I haven't gotten to.
All right. Well, congrats there. Yeah. Again, as we're going through this process, we got, what? I celebrated making it to church on time on Sunday because I'm always late. So sometimes we got to celebrate those little wins because that's the momentum to go forward to the next big thing. So, okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you for sharing and have a good week.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.